Hello everyone, welcome to the channel once again. In this video, today we are going to start with the ISC poem for class 12, that is Crossing the Bar, written by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Now, as far as Tennyson is concerned, Tennyson is considered to be the national poet of Britain. Alfred Tennyson, it is said that before writing this poem, he was suffering from a very chronic disease. And the time when he wrote this poem, basically he was at the age of 80, just being recovered from a very chronic disease. So, as far as the genre of this poem is concerned, the category in which this poem, Crossing the Bar, it falls, it is known as an elegy. An elegy is a very popular form of a poem. An elegy is a particular poem which mourns, which laments the sadness of the death of someone. In literature, there are some great examples of elegies, such as "O Captain, My Captain," an elegy written for W.B. Yeats, an elegy written in a country churchyard. One of such elegy is in our text, that is Crossing the Bar. There's another elegy, if you remember the first poem, that is the Darkling Thirst. Now, basically, an elegy is dedicated for lamenting the death of a person. In case of Darkling Thirst, the first poem, the only exception with that particular poem is that the poet is not lamenting the death of a person. But in that particular poem, the poet is basically lamenting the death of a century which is about to go and a new century which is about to born. Now coming back to Crossing the Bar. Crossing the Bar is a popular example where the literary devices, they come into play. Now, the title itself is very, very symbolical. The symbol that has been used out here, the word bar out here. In Oxford Dictionary, you will come across around 30 to 35 meanings for this bar. The word bar out here, it has been used as a ridge, a sand ridge just around the sea. A bar, it has been used which divides the land from the sea, where a person is supposed to start his journey as soon as a person dies. Now, Crossing the Bar, basically the title, it stands for crossing the land and going to the sea, embarking a journey to the sea. So basically, this particular elegy, it revolves around the landscape that we live in the daily life, in the ground, in the land. As soon as a person dies, he crosses his limits of the life that he lived in the land, and he starts his journey going towards the sea through a ship. Right here, I try to wrote the wordings, the sentence, the lines, the verse out here. The first line itself, it is very, very symbolical. Starts with a timing, that is sunset and the evening star. Now, sunset and the evening star, these are a continuation, thing. Now, evening out here, sunset out here, it talks about the end of the day. The end of the day, that is dusk, and the beginning of the evening out here. Now, evening star, in other words, it is also known as Venus. Now, Venus is a particular star which rapidly moves around the sky. Now, out here, the evening star, that is symbolical to the life that also revolves so fast, and very soon we reach near to the age of our life where we are supposed to die. So basically, the first line itself, the poet, he talks about that he has reached to the limits of his life. If you remember, I started my lecture by talking about the fact that the time when Tennyson wrote this poem, he was at the age of 80 and he was just being recovered from a very chronic disease. So the first line itself, sunset and the evening star, it gives us a hint that probably the poet is trying to hint to the point that he too have reached to the limits of his life. And symbolically, he has used these two words out here, sunset and the evening star. Probably the end of the day, the beginning of the night, the end of the life and the beginning of a new life. Now the second line out here, this one interesting thing out here, one clear call. Now this is an open-ended thing, that clear call from whom? probably a clear call from the sea. Because the Christian, according to Christianity, they believe that as soon as a person dies, he lives his life out here in the land and he starts his journey like a voyage in the sea. And he starts his journey through a ship. So probably the poet is talking out here a clear call that he received from the Almighty, that his time of death is very, very close. Out here, and may there be no mourning for the bar. Only exception with this particular elegy, with the rest of the elegy, is that this particular elegy is written for the self, as if Alfred Tennyson is writing this elegy for himself only. But only exception with other elegies and this particular elegy is that on the other elegy, where there are griefs, there's a tone of sadness, there's a tone of lament, mourning for the death. But out here, the poet is not mourning for the death, rather he is graciously, is ready to accept the death, and he's also asking people not to mourn, not to cry for his death. That comes in my mind, there's another poem was there in the last syllabus for ISC, written by Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas, there's a memorable poem, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. Basically, if you look into the structure of that particular poem, that too is a particular elegy. But the exception of this particular poem with Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, the word good night was also symbolical out here with the evening star. Now, good night out there was also death. Now, Dylan Thomas was asking people not to accept death gently. You should revolt. Now, death is obvious, death is impending, death is something which cannot be avoided, that is known to all of us. But in that particular poem, I'm talking about Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. In that particular poem, Dylan Thomas, he asks the readers not to accept death gently. Unlike that particular poem out here, Crossing the Bar, rather poet is ready, he is graciously, he is ready to accept the death, and is also asking no one to mourn, no one to cry for the fact that he is dying. When I put out to sea, now when I put out to sea, when I start my journey, when I embark my journey through the ship to the sea. So the first stanza itself, it gives us a lot of hint about the poet who has come very close to his death, and he probably he is understanding the fact that his life is no longer. And the reality, let me share with you, it is said that the poem was written in the year 1889, and Alfred Tennyson, he passed away in the year 1892. So just 3 years after he finished writing the poem Crossing the Bar. So this poem, it gives us a hint that probably Alfred Tennyson knew that his time of death is very close. At the same time, he doesn't have any regret. He doesn't want to cry. He is asking his followers not to cry, not to mourn, not to lament for the fact that he is about to die. Let's start with the second stanza out here, which is once again a lot of literary devices that has been used. As far as the rhyming scheme of the poem is concerned, it is written as a traditional ABAB structure. Now, star with bar and me with C. When it comes with the second stanza out here, it is asleep with the deep. So if I start with star with A, and then comes with me, that is B, then bar A, then C, B. Similar to that, asleep out here, it starts with C, then foam D, once again deep a similar pronouncing with asleep, that is C, and once again home, that is D. So it's similar to that. When you come to the third stanza out here, once again a place that stands for E, then F, E, F. When you come to the final stanza out here, when it comes with G, H, G and H. So this is the rhyming scheme of the poem. So I finished with the first stanza, was about to start with the second stanza out here. But such a tide as moving seem asleep, to fool for sound and foam. So the poet is basically sure of the fact that as soon as he starts his journey, he finished with the last line out here, as soon as he starts his journey to the ship, he is expecting, he is rather praying to the Almighty, the tide to be full, so that his ship gets speed and it immediately goes to the mid-sea, and so that he becomes closer to his death. Okay? Now, the next two lines out here, when that which drew from out of the boundless deep. So, the time when a person is living, a time when a person is surviving in the land, there are so many limitations out here. There can be political limitations, there can be social limitations, there can be economical limitations for a person. But as soon as a person, he dies, as soon as a person, in the words of Alfred Tennyson, he starts his journey to the sea, there are no foundations. He leads to a boundless life. There are no limitations. And the last line out here, which is once again very, very symbolical, turns home once again, turns again home. So basically the poet is talking about the concept of rebirth. Maybe the poet is expecting that today maybe he is about to die, but once again this tide will take him back to the home. So it's like a retreating tide. Once it going to the ship, once again it is coming back to the shore. So something like today, the tide is taking away the poet from the earth, from the land. Once again with the retreating tide, he may come back home once again in his next life. So I'm going to start with the third stanza out here. So basically the third stanza, the rhyming scheme, as I said, twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. Now twilight in literature, it has always been symbolized as the end of life or the doom, which is very, very close. So twilight is that particular time when there is a faint ray in the sky and which embarks the beginning of the night. So twilight and the evening bell, once again it is related to the first line. If you remember, the sunset of the evening star, which gives us a hint to the timing. The timing not only in the physical level but also on the psychological level, where the poet was at the age of 80, he knew that his time of death is very, very close. So once again this twilight and evening bell. Now evening bell, obviously the bell that marks in the church, the bell which marks the end of the day and beginning of the night. So end of the day, basically the end of life, and beginning of the night, once again darkness always symbolizes with death. So the marking of the beginning of the evening, that once again symbolized with the beginning of another life in the other world. So and finally he says that, and after that the dark. So finally the twilight, then the evening bell, and after that the darkness, after that the night, and after that the death. So finally he says, and may there be no sadness of the farewell. If you remember this line, once again it relates to that particular line where he asks the readers that let there be no mourning for the death. You should always be graciously accept the fact that you are about to die, because death is something which is not in your hand. You are about to die, you will have to die. So once again he says that let there be no sadness of the fact that I am about to bid you farewell, I am about to die. And finally he says that when I embark, this line once again it connects that particular last line of the first stanza out here, where he says that when I put out to sea, so when I embark, when I start my journey, let there be no sadness, let there no one to cry, seeing that the fact that I am about to die. Finally, coming to the last stanza out here, once again from out our born of time and place. So final stanza, as far as the rhyming scheme is concerned, once again, from out of born of time and place, and the flood may bear me far. So place out here and face out here, we can mark them as a G, and once again the flood may bear me far, and when I have crossed the bar, we can mark with H. So out here, from the out of our born of time and place, the flood may bring me far. So he is praying to the Almighty, the tide to be full, the tide to be rapid, so that his voyage may be fast and speedy, so that he can finish his journey within a short while, and he can finally, coming to the third line of the final stanza, where there is an important part of the line, that is the pilot. So out here, every individual, especially in the Christianity, there's a belief that when a person that he dies, his ship, the pilot of his ship, or rather the captain of his ship, the captain who sails the ship in which someone is supposed to make his voyage after he dies, that is Jesus Christ. So that is the only wish that a religious person may have. So out here, the poet in these 3 lines basically is praying to the Almighty that let my journey, let the tide to be full and speedy, so that my voyage can be so fast and rapid, and finally I can meet, I can see, I can encounter my pilot, I can encounter my God Jesus Christ face to face. And finally he says that when I have crossed the bar, once again this word crossed, it can once again symbolizes with cross where Jesus Christ was crucified. Once again it can also symbolize with cross. So basically he is saying that when I cross the bar, when I cross the land, and finally I embark my voyage on a ship. Thank you.